Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Authors on the Air, part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I'm James Latwell, your host for today's session. I think you're going to have a blast. We're going to talk to Julia Dahl. Julia has her new book out, or soon to be out. I dreamed of falling. Um, I don't know how to start this because this book. I mean, we read a lot of books between the two of us. I mean, we read all the time, and usually, yeah, it's a good story, and you kind of move on. But this one is still haunting me, and it's been weeks, and it just won't go away. How do you do that and keep a book so captivating like that? I mean, it's not everybody can do that, but congrats to you.
Oh, thank you. That means so much. I mean, that's the goal, right? Is like you want to write something. I just read an amazing book called The God of the Woods by Liz Moore, and I have that feeling about it too. Like I can't stop thinking about it and I just want to live in that world for a long time. So thank you. I mean, that's what you want to do, right? Is help people escape a little bit, but also maybe learn a little bit about I don't know. I'm always sort of interested in writing stories that maybe you can't relate in terms of your specific circumstances, but the themes of, in this case, it's love, sort of desperation, regret, forgiveness, that maybe somehow that touches your life and you are able to um, connect to it.
Yeah, and you did a bang up job. Can you tell folks a little bit about the story behind the book?
Yeah, so the book is about a small town local reporter named Roman Grady, whose girlfriend, the mother of his 4-year-old son, is found dead on a hillside in their little Hudson Valley town. And initially, the police sort of seem to think it's that she's overdosed. She's had a history of drug use, and she was at a place where there were drugs being used. But Roman kind of doesn't buy that, and he starts digging about and learns that Ashley really that he didn't know a lot about was actually going on in her life, even though they lived together and have a son together, and that there were people that he'd grown up with his whole life in this small town that he also thought he knew and didn't really know. So it's sort of it's a murder mystery, definitely, but it's also really like a story of a family, a loving family, but a really flawed family that are sort of struggling to survive in the wake of some trauma and with a town that's kind of rapidly changing around them.
Yeah, and that whole setting and Roman's character were really kind of you know, gripping in a real world kind of way. Now you have a background as a journalist, CBS News and the New York Post, and you teach journalism at NYU. How much of Roman's backstory is kind of scraped from your life experience?
Well, I mean, I'm lucky in that I'm like 20 years older than Roman. And so when I started in journalism, the world of journalism was a little more robust than it is now. Now it's really just falling apart. I think because of decisions or frankly, lack of decisions that people at the top of major news organizations made or didn't make 25 years ago, when the internet started to take over news, they sort of were like, well, la 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 la, we'll just keep doing the same stuff. Um, and now that's come home to roost. And so, my job at NYU is I teach young journalists, but I also am a career advisor for them. And watching so many of these young people struggle to find jobs. And when they do find jobs, often what they're doing is, I mean, if they're even making a living wage, which I see these job listings and they're paying 40 grand for a full-time job in a major city, right? Like, I mean, you're going to also have to be a bartender and babysit on the side. And, being a journalist is a full-time job. So if they can find those jobs, and then there's also, just layoffs left. I mean, I swear every week it's a major news organization folds or lays off 20% of their staff. And it's dark, right? It's and what makes me so angry is that journalism, I mean, any of my students will tell you, I'm a journalism evangelist, right? I mean, I believe that journalism is one of the most important callings there is, right? I mean, the democracy doesn't function if people don't know what's going on. And I don't think it's a coincidence that our democracy is falling apart, just as the news media is falling apart, right? And there are reasons for that. And the death of local news is really one of the themes that I'm working on in this story, because Roman is basically the only reporter at a small town paper that covers multiple towns. So, I mean, it is his job at, $45K a year to go to every school board meeting in multiple towns, every community board meeting, every planning board meeting, and then also every bench dedication and every, school, every football game and track meet. And it's impossible to do all that, but it's definitely impossible to do all that and try to think ahead and think, well, wait a minute, this planning board meeting seems like there was something going on and I'm not sure, or this person is connected to this person. Is that a conflict of interest? Or, this politician, this local leader said he would do this, and it's 3 years later and it hasn't happened. You can't do any kind of real holding people to account when you're just running around trying to like put out fires or like report on fires, um, and that was something, I mean, that is a big problem in our country, right? Like that people, the number of local newspapers and news organizations that have died in the last 20 years is, I should have this statistic at the ready, but it's dramatic. And so people turn to, sort of national news, and national news, especially television news, has really just become entertainment, right? It's just like people
Yeah.
talking, the report, the people on the ground reporting are getting replaced by the people in the studios talking, right?
Yes.
Which means
Yes.
we don't really know what's going on. And I wanted to create a character in Roman that was sort of at the center of that and could illustrate that, but also who, went to school thinking, I'm going to be a watchdog journalist. I'm going to speak truth to power. I'm going to, shine sunlight into the dark places. And the reality is just super depressing to him. And it kind of, along with becoming a parent at a young age and sort of an unexpected
Mhm.
pregnancy, um, it just leveled him. And he's sort of not the person he was. He's 20, 24, 25 now. And he's just like, lost his ambition and lost his drive to do the work, to really like live in a lot of ways. He's suffering from severe depression. And
Yeah.
a part of it is from his work.
Yeah, and I think you captured that. I mean, you really show Roman in the middle of this. He's not where he wanted to be in his career, and he's in this, the smaller town covering, like you said, school board meetings, and where every DUI is headline news.
Yeah,
Um, and then he starts this investigation and uncovers more and more secrets. And I
right.
thought what was fun about the setting was it was small town. Everybody knows everybody, but small towns have these secrets. And what is it about secrets that are so powerful that they really just grab onto you?
I mean, it's like I can't believe I'm about to quote Dr. Phil, but I'm going to quote Dr. Phil because one of my favorite Dr. Phil. I used to work at CBS News, and we would have TVs all over the place, and Dr. Phil was on CBS, so Dr. Phil would be on every day, and sometimes I would catch things. And one of his like truisms, he's got a couple that are pretty good, is monsters live in the dark. And I think of that with secrets, right? Like if your partner if you have a secret from your partner, it's and this book is very much about the partnership and love story between Roman and his girlfriend, the mother of his son, Ashley. um it festers. It become one secret becomes two secrets, become 1,000 secrets. And it's sort of like with lying, right? Like one lie begets another lie. And it makes you those secrets, and not just with partnerships, but in, within your family, within your town, it disconnects you from people, because that the persona you're putting on is sort of a lie. And that, I think, is um difficult to deal with. And so it kind of breaks down your own self-image and makes you into sort of maybe a harder, angrier person. And um, but then also secrets are, we also all have them. So I sort of love to just explore that, and explore, but also explore the like the the ugliness that that can create in people and specifically in family relationships.
Yeah, and the way Roman kind of uncovered secrets about Ashley,
Mhm.
um, she wasn't exactly who he believed she was either in some
Right.
of the secrets that she held, and that was, I thought, really powerful in the book as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in some ways, you can never really know anybody, especially if you're not paying attention. And that was one of the things that sort of happens with Roman and Ashley's relationship. And I think probably happens with a lot of people's relationships is you get caught up in the sort of, drama and day to day of everyday life, especially, one of the sort of themes of the book is how difficult it is to parent a young child, especially if
Yeah,
you weren't really prepared. If you're young yourself, you're not financially stable. Um, they sort of stop talking to each other, Roman and Ashley, and they stop being curious about each other. And so they start missing things about each other. And those things end up being really important.
they did. I mean, the way you crafted the book, it's like this Russian nesting ball of secrets. Every time you turn over something, there's another kind of reveal or a plot twist. And I thought it was really well done and layered and textured. And it got me to thinking in terms of the craft of writing something like that. I mean, do you know the ending of what it is you're going for? Because I mean, there were a lot of things to tie together, and you did it
Right.
really, really well.
Right. Well, it took a lot of drafts. I mean, this book, like pretty much every one of my mystery novels, I know who dies and I know who did it, and pretty much I know why. But I have no idea how I'm gonna get there. And I don't, and that's in some ways the fun. Working on a new novel now, and I sort of, know who dies and know who did it and why, but I don't know how I'm gonna get there. And I'm trying to be a little more deliberate. This, this will now be my sixth novel. I'm trying to be a little better. Anybody who is a writer or talks to writers know there's the plotters and the pantsers, right? I've always been, I guess, a pantser because for me, outlining is just like I'm bored. I sit down, I want to sit
Mm.
down and like create a scene. I want to, have dialogue between the characters, but it does take longer if you don't know where you're going, right? I mean, even if you know where you're getting at the end, but you have no idea how you're going to get there. I mean, you're going to have so many false starts, and I had so many false starts. I mean, I have with every novel I have thousands and tens of thousands of what I call outtakes. So basically, like, I never
Mm.
throw anything away, right? Like I write stuff and then I go back and I'm like, can't use that. And I take it out and I put it each point of view character for me has an outtakes file and I just dump it in there. And I've,
Got it.
tens of thousands of that. Um, so it's just like, I mean, it's really a process. Like the kind of the way I think of it is like I have like a block of marble, and inside I know there's a cool sculpture, and I just have to chip, and eventually I'll see it. Like I don't even know how I'm going to get there, but if I just keep writing, eventually I'll get there. And then also I'm really lucky, and then I have both an agent and an editor who are really good. And I can go to them, my agent early and say like, how's this feeling? Or I'm concerned about this, or I have a question. I'm not sure how I'm going to get there. Can we talk it out? Like just having somebody who's
Mhm.
smart and invested in your work, willing to like talk it out with you is such a privilege. And then once I turn in, what I think of is like, it's great. It's, book, my editor, Kelly Ragland at Minotaur, who's a genius,
Yeah,
will
yeah,
always, always make it better with her notes. So, it's a lot of it is just me banging my head against the wall and writing, and taking lots of walks and trying to figure out how I get, what the motivations are and how I get from the motivation to the scene, from one scene to another. Um, so it's just, a lot of knocking my head against the wall and walking. I'm a big like I walk and walk and walk and think and think and think.
yeah. That that helps kind of unlock things sometimes for me
Yeah,
too. It
yeah,
it really
yeah.
does. Now, we understand where the kind of the background for Roman's character and the
Mhm.
journalism um, world came from. But I mean, you handled the interactions with law enforcement, the police aspects of it, and their investigation really well. How did you come to kind of flesh that out so well?
Well, I mean, I was a crime and justice reporter for a long time. many, many, many years. So I know, I not know enough about, and I've written how many, 4 crime novels where I've had to talk to, had to ask police specific questions about like, okay, well, what would happen if, if this, then what? So I do have some understanding of like how police investigations go, but my novels all before this took place in New York City, and small towns, obviously, certainly when it comes to policing, very different. So I was lucky enough in that one of the cops in my small town, I mean, there's literally like 3, I live in a tiny little town in the Hudson Valley, and not everybody knows everybody, but like I spend a lot of time at my local coffee shop and at my local library. That's where I do a lot of my writing, are those 2 places. So one of the local cops, when he's off duty, is often at the coffee shop. So we've gotten to be friendly. And at one point a couple years ago, I said, like, can I pick your brain for a minute? Like, I'm working on this story. If you had found a body in this, talk to me a little bit about what you're thinking, what the process is about, like, okay, well, who gets the body then? Is there an autopsy? What does that look like? And he was nice enough to talk me through that.
That's awesome because it did ring very true and accurate in that respect. So I kind of dug that as well.
Good.
One of the themes that kind of it goes through the book is family. And what is it about those closest to us that triggers this emotional response? And from everything from regret to just like you mentioned, your famous Dr. Phil quote that will now be ever enshrined.
Monsters live in the
Um,
dark. It's good, right?
Monsters live in the dark. I'm getting it. Yeah, what is it about family that gets that response?
I mean, my mom always used to say, like, no wonder there's no peace in the world. Families can't even get along. Like it's like it's the people you love have the ability to hurt you the most because A, they know you and they know your triggers. But B, you care about them the most. So when they upset you or when they do something that's upsetting, you're gonna care more than stranger on the street. Stranger on the street tells you like you're being a jerk, whatever. But if your partner's like, stop rolling your eyes at me. Stop like, I mean, it just like hits because, and especially with romantic partnerships, I mean, you've like Ashley and Roman have been together since they were 13 years old. And it's a non-traditional relationship. Ashley's bisexual. They have on and off an open relationship, which I've never met a person where an adult for whom that works, but for them it does, and it's something that baffles everyone around them, but also something that works for them, and that they've managed to. They love each other a lot, and they are sort of understand each other's maybe different needs, and that in a way is one of the things that is rich about their relationship. But still, it has the same problems as everybody else, and they have devoted their lives to each other. They've been together, they're 25 and they've been together 10 years, more than 10 years. They have a child together. And so, you know, when you devote your life to somebody and then they disappoint you, even just in a little way, it can be crushing, right? Because you're like, I
Right.
gave, I mean, I think Roman often will think, I gave up, when, one of the sort of plot points in the story, which is not really a spoiler in any way, is that when Roman graduated from college, he got a fellowship to go to Los Angeles and work for the LA Times. And he decided not to take it because Ashley gets pregnant. And he's thinking, it's cool, we'll go next
Right.
year, we'll have the baby. And, anybody who knows having a
Life
baby, like
happens.
leave,
Yeah.
right, moving across the country with no family support with a toddler is not easy, right? So,
No,
he
it's
feels
not.
like I gave up my opportunity for you, and Ashley has
Yeah.
similar feelings of sort of like, we shouldn't have, maybe we shouldn't have done this. I had dreams too, right? And they can't figure out how to make their dreams work and also be parents. And that is, I mean, I think you can do that, but it's very hard. And especially when your child is really young, it's totally all consuming and
Yeah.
can make you feel like you're really, when I had my son, I was 38. I was a professional. I had a career that I was good at, and then all of a sudden I have this little baby, and I'm don't know what to do. I mean, I felt like I was failing constantly. And, that was sort of in some ways the impetus for this book. And I sort of thought, well, what if I had been 21 when I had this baby, and I was, and I was not financially stable, and I hadn't made the dreams of my career come true yet. What would
Right.
that be like? Yeah.
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 And and that dynamic I thought was really well played out in your book here. Now we're going to end up with something called three quick hits, and I want to put you in Roman's character
Okay.
and to just ask you three quick questions. Just let me know what comes to your mind.
Okay. Okay.
So, what's Roman's favorite drink or his favorite cocktail?
Oh, he's a beer guy. Beer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see
I'm a
that.
b
How
Can I
about
say, do I go in the
how
first
about
person?
yeah,
Do I say, "Give me a beer," like, I'll take a fancy one, but I'm also cool with a Corona?
I like that. That fits. That fits. How about his favorite music? What does he listen to?
Oh, what a great question. Um, oh, I should have kn I feel like this is, like, character work I should have done. Um, he's probably, like, kind of a like, new rock and roll, like, he grew up probably listening to, like, The Strokes, stuff like that, like, he
Mm,
likes the hard edge of rock and roll, but likes it, isn't like I'm not, like, into he's not, like, into, like, Led Zeppelin and stuff like that.
got it. That fits. That fits with this character. I like that. And then finally, what's Roman's greatest fear?
Oh, that it's his fault that Ashley died.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it. That's good. Folks, we've been talking with Julia Dahl. Julia's book, she's a frequent, you're going to find her books on best of lists and most anticipated lists. This one I predict will be on those lists, so you're going to want to get your copy because this is going to haunt you for a while after you read it in a good way.
In a good
So,
way.
Julia, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you so
thanks for
much.
being with us.
Okay.
All right, take care.